So we're here today. We've got Sean Davis and Ziggy, the dog. And I just wanted to ask you, Sean, what's the best way of getting into rent-to-rent?
I think the two ways. So it's before you get into rent-to-rent, you need to understand what strategy specifically in rent-to-rent you're going to go for. And for me personally, that's temporary accommodation. That is what I'm doing now. That's what I'm using to scale the business nationwide. And it's also what a lot of our mentees are doing as well. I'm absolutely smashing it using that strategy. So that's the best way, in my opinion, because what it provides you is financial security, it's government backed. And actually from a rent-to-rent landlord's point of view, I find it's actually easier to close landlords because landlords want the financial security. In COVID, a lot of landlords got stung, me included. I was doing rent to service accommodation, I was doing rent to HMO, housing students. No one's seen it come in, and then we all got stung. So you can use that pain point to actually sell the temporary accommodation to landlords, and landlords love the idea. So that's my best way of getting into property.
So what do the steps look like for people if they want to get a rent-to-rent temporary accommodation deal? What do they have to do?
Yeah, so firstly, before they actually start to find properties, you need to find a provider first. That's the key, really. Find the provider, understand what council you want to work with, speak to the homeless team in the council, speak to the temporary and emergency accommodation department, and then find out 3 core questions. Number 1, what specific types of properties are they looking for? What areas that they want the properties in? And number 3, what's the rent settings? What are they going to pay per night? Because the way temporary accommodation works, it's on a nightly basis. Once you've got that core information, you can then go out there, do your due diligence, and basically start closing deals, marry the two together. The council will come out there and inspect the property. They'll tell you what needs to be done, if there's any works. Usually they look for things like damp, mold. They're very hot and stuff like that. Other than that, you're good to go from there. And the council just pay you a nightly rate once it's onboarded.
So Sean, in terms of the strategy behind it, so do you recommend people to close the deal directly with the council first, get the rent settings and close the deal first before they find the property, or should they find the property first and then do that?
It has to be the council first.
Yeah,
because I never really understand when someone closes the property first, because you don't really know what you're closing. You need to understand, is the location right? You could do all this hard work, get a property that you think is in the perfect location, but actually it's not. The council don't want it. It's not where the council's looking for. It's not. The council don't need it, and then now you're stuck with a deal that you can't do nothing with. So say you're wasting your time, it's best to do the other way around. Focus on the council first. Focus on their requirements. Or if you're not doing the council, you can do like another strategy, back-to-back leasing, when you work with a social housing provider. So you find out exactly what they're looking for, what's their requirements, and then you go out and essentially almost become like a bespoke sourcer for that property, for that provider.
Yeah, I'm with you. And what are the typical results people get by doing a rent-to-rent temporary accommodation deal?
Yeah, so typically per deal, you can look to make anything from £500 to £1,000 per month for a typical deal. Now, the game changer with this strategy is it's very scalable. So what I love about it is the council will tell you the demand. So you work off the council demand, and a lot of the councils, they can't catch up. They have more tenants than properties.
So they're desperate.
They're desperate. They need properties. So essentially, once the council gives you the go-ahead and says, okay, cool, we've got X demand in this area, you can then go out there and start scaling. And then the sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So Sean, I just wanted to ask you, if someone owns a property, can they still do temporary accommodation?
100%. It works the exact same way. You call the council, you get from them the nightly rate that they will pay. You tell them that you've already got the property. So in that case, you do the other way around. You say, look, I've got this property. This is this is the spec. This is the number of bedrooms, the location, and then you tell them obviously the square meters of each room as well. They need to know that. That's really important. And then they'll come and inspect it and then tell you whether they want it or not.
So we've got Ryan.
Yeah.
So Ryan smashed it on his one.
Oh, absolutely smashed
it.
So
he owned the property, didn't he? And he's doing it as temporary accommodation.
Yeah. So the game changer with this, Ryan's actually based down south in London, and he's found a provider up north where his property was. It wasn't a buy-to-let before. He was probably making a few £100s a month, and then now he's turned it into a temporary accommodation property. He's now making £3,000 per month.
Damn, that's crazy, man.
Crazy, because unlike strategies like surface accommodation, with temporary accommodation is 100% occupancy.
Yeah.
So you know, with like service accommodation, it'd be up and down, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
some months you'll have high, it's peaks and troughs every month. And for me, you don't get that level of certainty. And that's what I know Ryan was doing the service accommodation as well. And what we're finding is a lot of investors want to now change all their service departments into temporary accommodation because, you know, winter months, everyone knows that, you know, it's seasonal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Winter months are low.
Yeah.
And then your summer months are quite high.
With service accommodation.
With service accommodation, yeah. Whereas with temporary accommodation, it's just steady all the way through.
Yeah.
It provides you the financial security. So a lot of investors, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Also as well, what you tend to find with temporary accommodation, I found this with the ones I've got, is when you house a family, a lot of the time the council don't want to cause too much disruption to the kids. So the kids are at school, they don't want to be like moving to school. So a lot of the time, let's say for instance, you've got a child that's in year 8 or 9, the council says, you know what, let's stay there until you finish school. So you know that you've got a tenant for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know any other strategy where you could get paid a nightly rate, a high rate for 4 years. It's just not, do you know what I mean? It's just not possible in any other strategy.
Yeah, so you do temporary accommodation yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important that people watching, they know that. Because like, you know, there's a lot of people preaching about social housing.
Yeah.
They don't actually do it themselves or to a high level. So talk us through your portfolio in terms of, you know, what type of properties have you got?
Yeah, so I'm with a council in the Midlands, and that specific council, it was a HMO that I had, and I was basically netting around £1,200 a month, which is decent, £1,200 a month because it's a HMO and it's professionals. But the issue is, I had so many issues with that property, tenants not paying, obviously voids as well. That £1,200 quickly becomes halved when a tenant decides not paying or there's a void in that property. I passed it over to council. That specific property now is making me over £3,000 per month.
Man, it's crazy.
Every
crazy
month.
Figures.
Yeah, just one property. So, you know, it doesn't take you long you can make 5 figures a month from this strategy when you've got the right knowledge.
Yeah.
You've got the right, you know, education. You understand how to do it properly because like with every strategy has risks towards it. The risk with temporary accommodation, being honest with you, is sometimes the tenant type that you can get, they can have mental health issues sometimes, not all the time, because you might get a perfectly fine family that's all good, literally might have some like financial struggles, or you might get someone that has a house, a council house, and the house, you know, was on fire, or they had a flood or something like that, and then they need temporary accommodation. Sometimes you tend to find with the emergency accommodation, because emergency accommodation and the temporary works the same way, but emergency is usually a higher level of tenant. So they might have like a mental health need. And that obviously comes with its own struggles as well, because their mental health might cause them, sometimes it can cause antisocial behaviour as well.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand how to mitigate that risk. And we mitigate that risk by, you know, helping them to understand the rules of the house, making them sign the contract on that. And that's really important because once the council passes you the property, there's no contract in place.
Okay.
It's on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
So you then have to make it clear to the tenant what your rules are for the house, so that they abide by the rules, and then they need to understand the consequences as well for that, and that's really important. Other thing that I like to do as well is regular inspections as well. When the tenant first moves in, at least once a week, do an inspection, so that you are, you know, you can ensure that the property's not getting trashed.
Yeah.
Another thing that I do as well, with any property that I get, as soon as the tenant moves in, I will always speak to neighbours on both sides. I'll give them a direct line, and I'll say, look, any issues, give me a call, because what you don't want them to do is to start complaining to the police or the council, and it just becomes a bit of a nightmare. You want to be able to have a good relationship with your neighbours. That's really important, that is.
Yeah. And how much, how much capital would someone need to do a rent-to-rent temporary accommodation deal? Typically...
So basically, the way it works is the invoicing is paid a month in arrears.
Okay.
So they'll be there for a month, and then at the end of the month, the next month, you'll then invoice the council, and the council will then pay you on their terms.
Will they backdate it from the
They'll
start
backdate
date?
it. Yeah. So essentially, what you need is obviously your first month's rent, because there's 2 ways of negotiating the rent. If you're really struggling, you know, capital-wise, you can actually say to your landlord, because don't forget, what about rent to rent? Every deal's different. you have the power to structure the deal that benefits you. So in the past, especially when I was first started, and even sometimes now when I take on a bulk of deals, I will negotiate rent-free periods. So you can say to the landlord, look, can I negotiate a rent-free period? If there is an issue with the property where there's stuff that needs to be done to the property, that's a great way of being able to negotiate a rent-free period. Second thing you can say to the landlord, I'll tell you what, you're going to get guaranteed rent now for the next 5 years or 3 to 5 years. You can say to the landlord, okay, we'll pay you the 2 months rent at the end of month 1. Instead of paying it up front, so that when you get paid from the council, you then obviously pay the landlord these 2 months.
Yeah.
That's a great way of structuring it if you have got. And actually, a lot of landlords, once you ask the question, a lot of landlords are quite receptive towards it because they know that actually you're locked into a 3 to 5 year contract. They're not going to have any stress, and what the landlords want is the financial security as well.
Yeah. And what's the biggest obstacles that people are going to face if they're wanting to do rent-to-rent temporary accommodation?
Yeah. So number one, you need to understand how to speak to the councils as well. There is a certain lingo that you have to sort of use, a terminology that you have to use when you speak to the councils. You've got to position yourself as an expert. Even though you're not an expert, position yourself as an expert. Make the councils understand. You've got to understand from the council's point of view. So imagine yourself as a business, right? If you've got a special need and you need hundreds of something, and someone's coming to you and they're trying to pitch to you, but they're not really giving you any confidence.
Yeah.
Or they can only provide you like, I don't know, one or two. You're not going to be really interested. You're going to speak to the guy who says, you know what, I can provide exactly what you need. I can solve your problem. And they're giving you confidence. The same with the council. And I see it time and time again. Someone will call a council and, they present themselves well. They're very competent. They help the council to understand the vision. They help the council to understand that you can help them achieve their goals in the housing crisis. And they end up closing the council, whereas you get someone who's a little bit, not really confident, not really putting any confidence in the council, and they get pulled up into post and they can't get through to anyone. So that's the first obstacle. The second obstacle is understanding how to find properties, understand how to find, locate and close properties. That's really important because you can find a council and certain people have got councils on board that are ready to rumble, but if you can't find the properties, then you're not gonna. You've got a product that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's it.
So you've got to. I think educating yourself and being around the right network and community is really important as well.
Yeah, 100%. So we've got obviously the capital required. We know how it works now, but I think, does it work in every single area?
It works in most areas, most major cities in the UK, because wherever there's people, there's problems. So, for instance, London, Birmingham, Manchester, that's the 3 main cities, isn't it, in the UK? So, them 3 cities work really well. But there's also like even Nottingham works well there. It works well in Wolverhampton, like little small cities as well. So the surrounding areas to the big, to the big areas, to big cities, it works.
So do they ever have say for example, the council, the homelessness department, they're dealing with, I don't know, maybe the temporary accommodation department in the council, whoever's dealing with that, do they ever have, I don't know, one company where they'll say, right, we're only working with this one company, they're providing all our needs kind of thing? Yeah. Does that happen?
It does happen. It does happen. So what will happen is that certain councils, you get a pool of providers, and if the need is being met through those providers, that the council will prefer to just work with them.
Keep it with them.
Because you're going to sound from the council's point of view, it's easier. So that's why it's very important to actually work quickly. There's over 300 local authorities in the UK. So there's a lot of local authorities. There's a lot of councils that you wouldn't think that work, but they work and they pay really good rates as well. So it's about doing your due diligence, working hard, trying to get through to the right people. Unfortunately, this game is not really about what you know; it's about who you know. But the way you get to know the right people is just by being consistent, being persistent. For instance, it's very important.
Yeah. So within HPA, obviously we have me teaching and mentoring on the BRR side.
Yeah.
Anything to do with buying, BRR, renovations, etc. On your side, teaching and mentoring on the rent-to-rent side, how have you found people that are getting the best success? Like, how are people doing it within rent to rent? Is it rent to rent temporary accommodation, or is it a combination of rent to rent social housing and rent to rent temporary accom?
Yeah, so I think the mentees that are achieving the best numbers, like the best, like numbers wise, are the ones that are doing rent to temporary accommodation. They're working directly with the council, and they're literally smashing it. So many mentees now that are making, between the 5 to 10k per month mark profit per month, and I think that's amazing because the average wage in the UK works at about £3,000 per month gross. So people are making that, profit per month, more than that, double that, triple that, through the temporary accommodation. They're doing it in under a year. A lot of them doing it within 6 months as well. So it's amazing, really.
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions about Ed Hughes. Do you want to talk us through kind of his journey, what he did? Because he does rent-to-rent temporary accommodation. He's on the programme and...
Ed smashed it. So Ed was a full-time police officer. He had 0 entrepreneurial skills, 0 property skills. And he just decided, you know what? He really wanted to have that location freedom, that time freedom that we all want, right? Like we wanted time and location freedom. I talked about it for years when I was working on 9 to 5, and he just decided to get educated. Now the game changer is I always say this for everything. Everything has a formula. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. You find someone who's done what you want to do, and you literally pay them to copy the formula. As long as you follow the formula step by step, you should actually achieve the same result, but achieve that in an actual quicker time frame. So Ed paid for the mentorship, and then within 6 months he was making like £9,500 per month. 6 months. In fact, it was about 5.5 months he was making that, which is phenomenal because you literally follow the formula step by step, and the formula it's proven it works. And I think that's the game changer. That's what I would do differently if I started from scratch.
You go straight into rent-to-rent temporary accom.
I would go straight into rent-to-rent temporary accom, and then also I'd find a way to get educated firstly. Because either way you're either paying with time or money. Time you can't get back. And time is so precious, it's so valuable. Money you can get back. So I would go straight into rent-to-rent temporary accom because it provides you the financial security, it's government backed. It's very quick to scale. Once you find a council that's on board, there's nothing stopping you. You can just keep going and go at quite a quick, fast pace as well. So I think with Ed, for instance, bearing in mind he was still at the police force at this time. And I'm sure it was between 10 to 15. No, sorry, it wasn't. It was about 10 deals he had within 5 months. So to do that while working full time,
it's massive.
Takes some going, but he was able to do
Grafter.
it.
But you know what? He's a good example of someone that's used this model to scale up. And I think that's the important point we're trying to make here. Is like, look, it's a scalable model. Because how many deals has he got? Around 25? Yeah, so 25 rent-to-rent temporary accom deals. Now he's making over 17 grand a month profit, housing people that need it the most. It's a win-win situation.
He's smashing it. And what he's done now, which I think is really, really good, is actually gone into a different council now. So he's scaled in one council. But I always think, it's great that you've got one council, but don't put your eggs in one basket, because the game changer with this strategy is that it can be quite passive. Once the tenant's in there, as I said, some tenants can be there for years sometimes. Once the tenant's in there, there's not really much to do. And the way we teach is actually how you outsource the maintenance, because the only thing to do really, maintenance, let's say for instance someone forgets their keys, locks, locksmith, boiler issues, pipes, all that stuff. We've got maintenance, external maintenance at very low cost that can come out and just fix whatever needs fixing.
So would you typically have to cover the maintenance on a temporary accommodation deal?
Yeah, you would do,
But I mean, when your margin is that high,
exactly,
you've got room for maintenance issues.
100%.
And obviously, and I'm guessing you wouldn't take on properties unless they were in really good condition.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we tell our mentees. In regards to maintenance, you outsource the maintenance to a company that we recommend once you're on the program, and it's a fixed cost with unlimited call outs, and there's no upfront costs. So you just pay a monthly subscription, but there's no excess when you make a call out. So actually, you can just offset. So when you do your figures, you know exactly your set fee. It's not much.
Is it like £200, £300?
No, it works at like £30 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm guessing they don't cover the roof.
No. So it's a very small number. What I'm saying is that like you can obviously offset all your costs,
Yeah.
and so basically you've got no unexpected costs.
Yeah.
If the roof caves in or something structural, that wouldn't be your responsibility
That's
anyway.
the
That would be the
landlord.
landlord.
Yeah, yeah.
So actually, it's quite a safe, secure strategy to do in that regard.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then, you know, that maintenance company, is that like a nationwide company?
Yeah, nationwide
Okay, wicked,
company. Yeah.
I might need them for my properties.
Yeah.
No, but I find it really interesting, you know, property overall. I love it, man.
Yeah.
I'm really obsessed with like the different strategies, learning as much as I can. And I feel like you're the same as well.
100%. 100%. Like for me, I do a lot of research into strategies, and you know, if there was another strategy that I thought was better, I'll just say, do you know what, this is great, and that's what I do. But I do like X model. But do you know what? I know me and you've done the exercise together. We literally gone through all the pros and cons of every strategy out there. Like, and it's very hard to beat something that's government backed because like the government's the only organisation that can't become bankrupt.
Yeah.
So it just that in itself just puts it above all, because what you want in a business, you want to be recession proof, you want to be bulletproof, and this strategy has weathered the storm. Do you know what I mean? So that's what gives me the confidence to actually put my own money into that strategy. And I think it's always telling when if someone's teaching something or got a community about something, but they're doing it themselves, they're investing their money heavily into that product themselves. That should show you that that person genuinely believes it.
Yeah.
But if someone's teaching something but they're not actually doing it themselves, for me, it rings alarm bells. Why are you teaching it? But if it's so good, why aren't you doing it yourself?
100%. So, Sean, for people that are watching that might not know, am I right in saying you've got over 85 rent-to-rent social housing deals? And within those deals, you've got a combination of ones that you run through your own social housing company.
Yeah.
But then you've also got ones that are rent-to-rent temporary accommodation deals where you work directly with the council.
Yeah.
Wow. So talk us through that. Like, what was your thoughts behind doing that? Why did you decide to structure things in that way?
So basically, I wanted to create a nationwide business. So my other strategy that I do in Birmingham called supported accommodation, that's a great strategy. But the issue with that strategy is you have to provide support to tenants. So what it means is it's very hands-on, very, very hands-on. So I was originally thinking, how can I scale this business nationwide? But it's not impossible. I'm not going to say things are impossible, but it'll be a lot of hard work to scale that business nationwide because it's so intense. And obviously I see the operations in Birmingham every day, so it's so intense. I can't imagine having properties, supported accommodation all over the country. It'd be a bit too intense. Whereas the temporary accommodation, it still mitigates the risk in terms of having multiple deals all over the country, but also working with different local authorities, but there's no support involved. And once the tenants are in there, it's still great cash flow, but there's no support involved, and it's very low. It's I don't want to say nothing's fully passive, but it's near enough passive once a tenant's in the property. So because the way we make it passive, by the way, is once the company that we work with, that we partnered with, we actually we put the tenant as the account holder. So we pay it, put the tenant as the account holder. So if there's any sort of issue with the property, they don't even need to contact us. They contact the maintenance company straight away, and the maintenance company will go there and get it sorted.
Wow.
Without us having to be involved. That's what I'm saying, it's very, very passive. The only thing that I have to do with these temporary accommodation properties is ensure that I'm doing inspections. But there's different ways of getting around that. You can do virtual inspections, you can do physical every now and again as well.
And if you had, say, 20 plus deals, you could always hire someone to go check every couple of weeks, go check the properties. But Sean, would you agree with this, that if someone's in a temporary accommodation unit or property, they're more than likely going to look after it just because they know that if they mess up that, they've lost their chance of getting a full-time accommodation?
100%, 100%. I haven't personally had any issues at the moment with my tenants because, like you said, it's temporary accommodation for a reason. Temporary accommodation is not forever. So when you have a council property, the council's not going to kick you out of that property. I've known people to have council property. I remember in one of my old houses, a neighbour was in a council property for like 50 years. So it just shows you can have that property for forever if you want. And then you obviously have the opportunity to buy it as well. So it's a great opportunity for people to have low cost accommodation. But if they blow the temporary accommodation that the obviously council's funding for them, and they're not respecting that property, well, the council's going to think, well, why would we give you permanent accommodation if you're just going to trash it and treat it this way? The council will end up washing their hands off them. That could end up happening.
How long do people typically stay in these kind of properties?
Typically, I mean, sometimes it could be weeks, months, years. It varies, but the demand is so high that if a tenant moves out within a couple of days, someone else will move in.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the specific situation. As I said, if it's like a single person and the person had a flood or a fire and whatever, it could be like a few weeks or months if it's a fire until their house gets sorted. Then the council obviously move them back in. But if it's a case of the council literally has no properties, they could be there for years, and that's where it gets great from a business point of view, in terms of you having a property that's just running itself basically.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, Sean, you've dropped a lot of gems on us today. We really appreciate it. Everyone watching, I'm sure they're going to get a lot of value from this video. So thank you for that, Sean. If anyone wants to work, with us within HPA, obviously we do cover BRR, but also rent-to-rent social housing, rent-to-rent temporary accommodation as well.
Yeah.
Best thing to do, guys, is just click on the link below, and or DM us, DM me, DM Sean, have a conversation.
And as well, one last point I'd like to make as well, the game changer with this strategy is that you can do both strategies. So you can actually build your rent-to-rent portfolio and make like £10,000 per month. And then when you've got the higher nightly rates, you can then start building wealth.
Yes.
And that's what you get with the program.
Yeah.
So you get both our expertise on that.
Yeah, that's it. And I love to see people killing it as well within it, because we put a lot into people. When I started doing it, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it that much, but I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah,
seeing the progress, and when people start smashing it, changing their life, leaving their 9-to-5 job that they hated, or it feels good.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, let's keep going, man.
Yeah,
let's
man.
keep doing it.
Let's do
Cool.
it.